Hey everybody, welcome back to ACC. We're here for another week of the LFM Rookie Sprint Series. Week 6 has us on Paul Ricard. I decided to drive the McLaren this week, and we're going to jump into this one pretty fast. Made it back into the top split out of 4, qualifying P9 for this one. Right at the start here, we're going to see things start to get pretty crazy into the first corner. A couple BMWs behind, getting a good run as we're slowing down a bit behind Casper, trying to be safe into the first corner. Going to end up almost going 4 wide in here. It's really tight. Going to actually bump one of the BMWs a little bit, just trying to get through. But luckily everyone around us gets through pretty clean, and we'll actually see this race settle pretty quickly with the cars around us. Once again, after the start, ACC is a little slow to update those positions. I believe we're still in P9 here. We can see everyone being relatively safe as their tires warm up. Nobody really trying to make any crazy overtake attempts yet. Also, this being a low fuel motorsport race, they actually implement their own safety ratings separate from the game itself, which encourages a lot cleaner racing between the drivers. But anyways, as we begin to go down what seems like the eternal straight, let's take another look at that start from another angle. We're in the blue and black McLaren there. You can see the BMWs behind getting a run as we go into the first corner, especially that blue and white one alongside their Ferrari. We kind of get stuck behind that Lambo a little bit. We try to eke in, but we end up in that almost 4 wide situation there. And on the exit, getting a little tap on that BMW. But it looks like the Bentley and Ferrari behind actually had quite an incident. Happy to not be involved or cause anything like that at the start. Coming through the fast and fearsome turn 8, we're going to get into a more technical part of the track after the straight. I'm actually going to get a run on the Ferrari ahead coming out of turn 9, but I'm going to get a little loose here. You see me snap the wheel back, so I don't end up having enough momentum to go past. This part of the track was definitely difficult for me to get down during practice. Paul Ricard's not a track that I've really played in any other games, so it definitely took some patience to be satisfied enough with my speed to enter the race this week. In fact, when I did start practicing the track, I was in the AMG like I have been in the previous races, but I just was really struggling to feel like I had the pace in that car. Started kind of experimenting with some other ones and ended up on the McLaren. I had practiced a good bit with it in the previous season of LFM before they made the balance of performance changes, and even with the plus 20 kilograms that it's given for this race, I still just felt better and more under control driving it. Now as we come into the first couple corners of the next lap, we're going to see a pattern start to develop here where we're staying relatively close to the positions ahead, but the positions behind are going to start to fall off our pace. It's going to help me feel a little bit more comfortable without the pressure from behind. This was a fast group of drivers though, so it's going to be hard for us to just run up the field. Our main goal at this point is really going to be to just stay close enough to the cars ahead to maintain good slipstream going down the long Mistral straight. Without that slipstream, there's definitely a solid chance you could be dropped off of the group, so ideally we'll try to maintain this half a second gap or so. I do start to feel a little bit concerned as we see P8's almost a full second behind P7, so I'm starting to get nervous they may actually lose the slipstream from the cars ahead, and that could cause the both of us to potentially fall off the pace. Luckily though, it doesn't look like that's going to happen for now as I speed up this long straight for you. Coming through the fast and fearsome turn 8 again, we're actually going to close the gap a little bit onto the Ferrari ahead, but we'll see as we get up into turn 9, I continue to struggle with this one a little bit. I get close behind, but on the exit I'm going to get a little bit loose again. It's going to slow me down. Over the course of the race, I'll start to settle into that turn a little bit, but some of those early race jitters getting to me there. So far, definitely not a lot of action happening ahead of us. Everyone's mostly staying single file for now. We continue to focus on staying in touch with the cars ahead while hopefully building the gap behind to P10. And coming around the final turns of this lap, we will actually see that gap expand a bit and we'll stay about half a second behind P8 ahead of us. We'll be looking to round out this lap around a 1:56 lap time. I'd really prefer for my race pace at least to see that into the 1:55s. That would also potentially put us in better contention with the cars up ahead. I believe the leader of this race was able to generate down into the 1:53s, which that would be really nice if we could do that. Would definitely require some more practice. Hoping maybe next time we come around to this track we might be able to at least push more into like the 1:54s. Coming into turns 3 and 4 though, we're going to see up ahead there's a parked car off to the side, the yellow flag coming out. It's a white McLaren, and they're actually going to be hanging out there for a couple laps, and when looking back at the replay I was kind of curious what happened, and we're going to see some shenanigans form after I have a massive moment on that turn there. Won't lose too much time, so we'll stay in touch with the Ferrari ahead, but meanwhile on the long straight, let's take a look at what happened in the McLaren. Things are going to look relatively normal as they come down into turn 1, but suddenly they're going to end up starting to skip a little bit, definitely having some issues with internet. The car is bouncing all over the place. In fact, they're actually going to start to take off here and then just hover in midair for a second. Once they come back down on the ground, a little bit bouncy once more. Coming into turns 3 and 4, they're actually just going to kind of ghost right through a couple cars, skip around a bit more, off the track, no back on, spin a little bit, and then come to a stop as they kind of sink into the ground a little bit, and then that's it. Unfortunate to see an internet issue ruin someone's race like that, but it can happen to anyone, hopefully not us for a while. But they're going to hang out there for a few laps, which is going to be a little distracting as we come up into those turns, seeing the yellow flag warning each time. But obviously isn't really going to affect our race much. But anyways, quick recap, we started in P9, we're still in P9 for now. The gap to P10 continues to grow, doing all we can to maintain contact with the cars out front. And honestly, the race is going to stay settled here for a pretty good amount of time, so I'm actually going to go ahead and skip ahead after we finally round out this third lap into the 155s. Alright, about 4 minutes later, not a whole lot has changed, but this is my quickest lap, so I thought I might talk through it. Definitely not an impeccable track guide, but we'll give it a go. Going into turn 1, you're going to want to start to run out, braking on the 100 board at the end of the curve. You can run over this one pretty solidly, avoid the yellow bumps on the inside, just touching the curve on turn 2 and getting on the power as you round out. As you start to head up towards turns 3 and 4, try to stay off the curve for the most part, but run out wide onto the blue and brake on the 100 board, abusing the curve of turn 3. Getting up into turn 4, you can get on the curve a little bit, try not to get too deep, it's pretty bumpy. With turn 5, definitely being able to hit the curb again and getting on the power early before being ready to slightly lift, barely hitting the white line on turn 6 and getting onto the power. Prepping yourself for turn 7 onto the straight. You can definitely get under the curb there and avoid the 2 markers on the right. If you hit those, you'll get a track limit penalty. And now we just go straight for what seems like an eternity, doing whatever you can to try to maintain your level of focus to prep for turn 8. But man, really sometimes this straightaway just feels like it takes forever, as I continue to fill the gap with more and more words. After turn 8, we will actually see a position swap between the Lamborghini and Ferrari ahead. But going into turn 8, you can go wide onto the blue, braking right before the 50 board and just kind of using the throttle to maintain the car stability throughout. You can run really wide, just avoid the markers on the outside there. Going to turn 9, you want to hit an early apex, avoiding the curve, it's pretty bumpy, and just modulating the throttle throughout, trying to get a good exit, kissing that curve on the inside. For turns 10 and 11, you can start a bit wide, braking around the cones, trail braking a bit to try to kiss the curve on the inside of turn 11 and getting on the power as early as possible. We see those markers again. Going around turn 12, try to stay closer to the curve than I am. You can kiss it a little bit there to try to get a straight braking zone into turn 13. Try not to run too wide on the exit as you have to prep yourself for turn 14. Actually, I kissed the curve a little bit here. It's bumpy, so be careful and just get on the power as early as you can. And with that, we'll round out that lap around 155.5. Definitely a lot more speed to be had. You know, the real aliens are pushing into the 152s, and I think the leader of this race was pushing into the 153s. But overall, I'm happy with that time for now. But anyways, thanks for indulging me on that. If you want a more detailed track guide, I definitely recommend Traction GG. While some of the track guides are a little bit older before the current 1.9 patch, they are definitely still helpful. But let's get back to the race. We're still in P9, we're about a second behind P8 now, so I definitely have concerns about the slipstream on the Mistral Straight. P10, however, has definitely fallen off, over 5 seconds behind. Continue to not feel any pressure there. I almost have a bit of a moment there. You can see me snapping the wheel all over the place to try to keep control, but at this point the race is pretty settled. We're about halfway through, and not a whole lot is going to change for a bit, so I am going to go ahead and skip forward again. Luckily, we do manage to close the gap to the cars out front. With about 8.5 minutes left in the race, we will see that gap has closed a bit. In fact, the cars up ahead are going to battle a little bit going into turn 8, which is definitely a difficult corner to do it in. It's so fast and dangerous. It does usually present itself as a good opportunity though, as a car in tow gets a lot of extra speed on a lead car going down that straight. However, for us, that battle is going to put us right back into contention with everybody here. We'll definitely be at least in slipstream range once we get back to that straight again. For now though, we're going to zero in on this Lamborghini ahead of us, see if we can at least try to gain one position here soon. We're really close on their back end. In fact, the blue car up ahead does go wide, but they come back on safely, don't lose any positions. Coming up into turn 13, we're going to go a little bit deep, not too bad, bringing it back in, hoping maybe we can get a run on turn 14. But as we've seen through most of the race, everybody's pretty evenly matched in this pack. It's really tough to just get a run on any given corner. But all we can do for now is just try to stay in the tow, see if an opportunity presents itself. Maybe there will be a mistake or a battle up ahead. Going into turn 1 here, I actually got really nervous because we started to come up fast on the rear end of the Lambo. They broke a little bit early, maybe we broke a little late, but it compromises our speed a little bit on the exit. Still only about a half second behind though, very much in contention. Going into turns 3 and 4, we're going to see the blue McLaren ahead go a little deep. That's going to slow them down for turn 4 and bring the Ferrari right up close to them. A little bit of a tap. Three-way battle now with the Lambo up ahead. They end up going wide. We end up nipping underneath. That puts us up into P8 and very much in the battle ourselves. After making that pass, I immediately just try to stay close to P7 so I can continue to get any slipstream down this long straight. I'm keeping an eye on the Lambo behind me. They're closing the gap at the toe, but we're actually going to see a battle unfold ahead of us between P6 and 7, going into turn 8 once again. The Ferrari is going to jump to the inside of the blue McLaren, and they're going to get a clean overtake in turn 8. Really not a lot of contention from the McLaren there. It is going to slow the both of them down a little bit. We're going to be able to close the gap some more onto the blue McLaren ahead now. Over the course of the last lap, I had seen some mistakes out of this blue McLaren, so I was a little hopeful that we'd be able to get up and maybe at least take another position up into P7. Going through turns 10 and 11, we are going to close the gap some more. I start peeking at the inside of the blue McLaren there, wondering if they might run wide again, but it actually slows me down some on the exit. Going into the final turns though, we are definitely going to get a run on them. They go way wide on turn 13. We're going to look to the inside here, which will be the outside for turn 14, and we're just not able to carry the momentum through. They've got the inside line and we went too wide. We're going to slow down a little bit on the exit, but still very much within their tow. Lambo's close behind, so I'm getting nervous about that. They have the tow on this straight, and they're going to start pulling in, and I think they're going to start to look to the inside here. I go mildly defensive. They decide against the pass for now, as getting the speed through these first two corners is really important. But they're going to stay right behind. Meanwhile, we stay as close as we can to the blue McLaren out front. At this point in the race, I'm definitely happy being up in P8. Anything in the top 10 right now feels great for me, and I even feel like here there's a chance I could get some more, but there is relentless pressure now from the Lamborghini behind. We see them in the rear view mirror getting really close, but I'm trying my best to ignore it and focus on the McLaren ahead. I'm hoping here that I'm close enough to the McLaren to really be able to take advantage of the slipstream, but the Lamborghini is also pretty close behind me, so they're going to have my slipstream as well. In fact, this straight right here is part of the reason why the McLaren is running plus 20 kilograms of BOP on this track for LFM this season. Its speed down this straight was pretty indomitable, but here we go. My fear is realized here as the Lambo's closing in really fast. In fact, they dipped to my inside before I really even think to do anything about it, so now they're on the inside going into turn 8. This definitely makes me uncomfortable with how fast this corner is, and there's not a whole lot I can do. I kind of have to concede the position to make sure we both get through the turn safely. So unfortunately, that puts me back down into P9 and giving me work to do to try to catch back up to the Lambo and maybe try to retake P8. In hindsight, I really needed to be paying attention to that more. I easily could have gone defensive into turn 8, maybe made them take the outside, and then it would have been a lot easier to hold that inside. In fact, I really think that would have let me stay in P8 for the time being, but I don't know, it might have been a matter of time before they caught up to me anyway. We still had a few laps left at this point with 4 minutes left. But either way, we're in a familiar position here. We're back into P9. We've got a 5-second gap to P10 behind us, so no longer pressure to deal with there. We're going to try to stay really close to the Lambo ahead. There's this group of 3 ahead of us. Everybody's pretty close. A mistake could happen at any moment. Maybe we can get some positions back. There's still 3.5 minutes left, so we at least probably have 2 laps before the race would finish. In fact, as we come into the first corner here, we're going to see that the Ferrari ahead goes really deep, and that's going to actually allow the Lamborghini to engage into a battle ahead of us. I get really excited about this because I'm hopeful it's going to slow both of them down and maybe I can follow somebody through. Going into turn 3 though, the Lambo already has made the overtake. Ferrari's a little deep, so we're going to get a little closer through turns 4 and 5, really close on turn 5 actually. So I'm hopeful that down the Mistral straight we're going to be able to use the slipstream and maybe get a pass similar to how we were passed on the last lap. Unfortunately though, as I speed things up, they also had tow ahead, and I think they just had a little bit better speed than me overall going down this straight. I'm in their tow, but just not able to close the gap at all down here. We get a 10th, but definitely nothing we can use going into the next few turns. It's a little painful at this point for me. I see all these cars ahead of us, but everyone's keeping their laps really consistent up in this group, and I haven't really seen any big mistakes out of anyone for a while. We're all starting to slow down a little bit. You can see the tire pressures are starting to drop. Everybody's tires are wearing at least a little bit at this point. And with 2 minutes left, we're in our last couple laps. And I really wanted things to shape up on these final laps, maybe heroically take a couple positions right before the end, but unfortunately it's just not really going to happen. Everybody continued to stay consistent, and that's going to really bring us into the finish as we were. So the gist of the story on this one, we started in P9, we finished in P9, so top 10 finish. Best I've done in Split 1 so far. Honestly, my biggest focus at the moment is probably my safety rating in LFM, but obviously like to finish as high as possible if we can. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're trying to put out more of these all the time. But until then, we'll see you for the next one.